Hi, I'm Paula Williams. Welcome to this week's Marketing Monday. This week we have an email from Frank who says, "How long do I follow up with a prospect that's been putting me off? He seemed like a great fit for our product and was very enthusiastic in our initial call. He said he had the authority to make the purchase and just needed to run it by his team as a courtesy, but didn't think it was a big deal. That was a month ago. I'm just about certain that he's dodging my calls. How long should I keep pursuing this sale?" And that's a great question. That can be incredibly frustrating. So thanks for joining us once again for Marketing Monday. If you happen to be here live, give us the thumbs up. Let us know you're here. If you have questions or comments or anything else while this is going on, you can go ahead and type those in. Or you can always add those after the fact if you're watching this later. So once again, great question from Frank. How long should I follow up with a prospect after, with a prospect that seems to be putting him off? So the answer to the question, the short answer is as long as it takes. But how do you figure that out is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about three things. First, you want to fill your pipeline so that you're not depending on an answer for any given question. Two is you want to let the prospect tell you what the timing is going to be for their particular purchase, because most of the time we're in business-to-business situations or in aviation we're in very high-ticket or complex sales. This is not something that's people can often make a decision on the spur of the moment, so often they drive the time frame. We don't, but we'll talk about that as well. And then third is you want to use our sales call checklist, and if you use that checklist, you're going to have one of three possible answers to every sales call, and you'll know exactly what to do from that point forward. So what you want to avoid is what Sandler Sales calls, the mutual mystification in the sales process, which is really frustrating for everyone. So I definitely feel for Frank and anybody else who has ever tried to make a sale in the aviation industry and felt like they were being put off, because that's one of the worst feelings in the world, is to feel like you have a sale just about sewed up, and then all of a sudden your prospect goes radio silent on you, and you can't get a hold of them, and they don't stop taking your calls. It's really, really obnoxious. So thing number one is you want to make sure that this person isn't the only one in your pipeline, because no matter how big the sale is, or no matter how good it sounds, or how likely it sounds, there are always a ton of things that can go wrong with any given sale. So you want to have lots of things in the pipeline, and that does a couple of things. Number one, it takes the pressure off you as the salesperson. And number two, your prospects can smell it if you feel like you're desperate, or like you're really counting on this sale or the income from this sale. So thing number one is to make sure you've got a really healthy pipeline of leads coming in, and that comes from having a great marketing system that's always providing you with high quality leads. So there's always another one coming along if this one doesn't work out. And that will show in your demeanor, that will show in the way you talk on the phone, it will show in a lot of different ways. So make sure you have a full pipeline. Thing number two, you want to let the prospect drive the timing. So there are some ways that you can increase the velocity of your sales cycle, and some of those ways are to set up what we call an urgency or a deadline of some kind by having maybe an artificial or an actual situation where if they purchase by a certain date, there's some advantage to them. So we're coming up on tax day, April 15th. You may have some tax day specials, or you may want to have just some practical reason that they want to buy your product and get the deal done by tax day or by the end of the year, or whatever the situation is. Or if there's an FAA guideline going into effect or something like that, that might be your urgency to get them to make a deal by a certain time. Or you can create artificial urgency by having a special on a product or service. Buy something this month and we'll throw in something else for free, or do free installation, or something of that sort. But other than that, it's almost always the prospect's timeline that drives the sale. So You're waiting on them to get their approvals, you're waiting on them to get their budget together. There's lots of things that they need to do in order to make the purchase from you, right? So you can let them drive the timeline, but let them tell you what that timeline is. So, before you hang up from that sales call, and this is the third point that we're kind of segueing into here. If you use that sales call checklist, you're going to have one of 3 responses to every sales call that you ever finish. You're going to have a yes, which is a great answer. You're going to have a no, which is also a great answer. Or you're going to have a I need more information, or I need something else. So a not now answer. So yes, no, or not now are the 3 possible conclusions to any given sales call. And if it's a not now, you can ask them, okay, so I understand there's probably a number of things that you need to do in order to make this decision. There's people you need to check with. There's, math you need to do, specs you need to check, other kinds of things. So when would be a good time to check back with you after you've had a chance to do all of those things? Let them tell you, check back with me next week, next month, the end of next quarter, whatever the answer is, that goes in your CRM and that goes in your call spreadsheet so that you know when to call them back. And then you're not bothering them, you're calling as they requested, right? You're doing what they ask you to do, and it changes the whole power dynamic of that sales call because you're doing what they asked, right? So those 3 things I think are really going to help you take some of the frustration and the sting out of that sales process. How long do you follow up with a prospect that's been putting you off? I guess it comes back to, if you set up this process correctly, then you know exactly how long you've got before they make a decision. If you didn't set up this process correctly in the first place, how do you salvage the situation? So for Frank, who maybe didn't get one of those 3 answers in his first sales call, now he's in a situation of playing catch up. And, I totally understand where you're coming from, Frank. And I hear the frustration in your email. I think what I would do in that case is leave your prospect a message and say, last time we talked, here were the things that we talked about, and here's what was left to do in your decision-making process. I haven't heard from you, so, I don't know if you're still interested, or, if you've gone with a different option, or if you'd like me to call back. So, let me know. And I would follow that up with an email the very same day and say, dear prospect, I left you a voicemail, and, I wanted to know if you've gone with a different option or if you're still interested in what we talked about last month. And leave it at that. Let them decide. And then from that point forward, you can always use that sales call checklist. You can make sure you have one of those 3 answers at the end of every sales call. Don't make it, don't put the pressure on you. Don't put the pressure on them. Put the pressure on the process and let that work out for you. So, how long should you keep pursuing a prospect that keeps putting you off? Not much longer than it takes. So, once again, I would just do that last email, okay? And then you want to leave them in your holding pattern. We've talked about holding patterns in different webinars and other kinds of things, where you're sending him your newsletters and other things until he tells you to stop. So you don't want to take him out of the holding pattern, but you do want to take him out of your active sales calls. If you haven't heard from him after that second email and that second sales call, I just leave it at that and say, just assume that he's pursued another option, and spend your time making calls right from the very first call, and where you have a better chance of actually making a sale. So I'd let that one go back into your holding pattern. If you hear from him again, great. If not, fine. Plenty of other prospects in the holding pattern, and continue from there. So that's this week's Marketing Monday. If you have a question for us, let us know. We will send Frank a copy of our book, The Social Media Marketing Guide to High Altitude Results. This is for aviation professionals and how to use social media more effectively. So this is going in the mail to Frank, and if you would like one, you can buy them on Amazon, or you can ask us a question. If we use it on the air, we will send you a copy. So have a great Monday, and we'll talk to you again soon.